Okay, thank you, Megan. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Anuson Sengmanikam, and I'm here in Laos. It's at 10 p.m. here. Um, so for today, I will give you an overview about the work at CARE. Let me share my screen. Okay. For the overview of CARE, what are we doing? CARE, the mission of CARE is poverty reduction and poverty eradication all around the world. And the focus of CARE is work on women. Women are the core, are the key elements of the work in CARE. So we put women in all as a center of our implementation. Women and girls will be integrated in all level of project implementation, design, and evaluation. And CARE has been working in Laos since since 1992. It's over 30 years right now. And we are working with many organizations, with the government partners and the CSO, the civil society organization. And CARE have their core member countries that support CARE Laos, which is CARE USA, CARE Australia, Denmark, and other countries in Europe like CARE Germany, France, Netherlands. This country, like when you are working at CARE, you will hear sort of like different CMP, like core member country that support CARE Lao in each project. And to give a little bit of context about Laos, Laos is a landlocked country, really small, and have only 7 million people. And in that 7 million people, we have almost 50 ethnic groups. And most of people live in upland and rural area, which is like over 21%. And we are the young population too. Is over 58 of people that are age under 25. And most of our GDP are largely on their natural resources. Laos is really rich in natural resources, especially on the minerals, the gold, forest, and water. So we have a lot of like hydropower dams built throughout the countries. And we actually call as a battery of Asia because we have a lot of hydropower dams throughout the country. I think over 20 to 30 hydropower dams that produce electricity. Uh, and that's called like a battery of Asia. However, the country also under the threat of unexported UXO uh, is covered over 30% throughout the countries. So you can have a look at the history of like UXO. It's still like active, and there are a lot of organizations working on that on the unexported exported ordinance. And the legal framework in Laos. Laos is a communist country, only have one government party. So the work in Laos is challenging in terms of the CSO or the international nonprofit organization work in Laos need to combine and follow the legal framework of the country. And another challenge of the country is the inflation, like economic inflation that affect the overall population that right now the Lao currency give is depreciate right now and make the population face significant challenge. Um, Going back to CARE, giving the overall of the country context, CARE has been focused on three areas, which is women health, women economic justice, and women resilience and climate change. Why we put women? Because we want to have uh, people to recognize us as like a gender organization, and we want all department to have the notion of gender mindset, gender integrated program because all projects at CARE will have the gender element. So I will give you more example about that. So what are we doing for the women economic health that we focus on the child health and nutrition and sexual reproductive health and also on wash, sanitation, and hygiene. And for my department, Women Economic Justice or Women Economic Empowerment, focusing on financial access and inclusion. And in this, we also focus on dignified work and development the skill of women, especially on financial literacy and women entrepreneurship skill. And for the climate change, also focus on climate adaptation and mitigation, and also climate smart agriculture. And we put women as the front line, as the leader of the climate adaptation and mitigation. And this is the overall of like care works in Laos in this year. For more detail, you also can have a look at our care website, Care International in laopdr.com. Then you will see this snapshot and other active projects. And these are all our active projects and current work. So we work in 7 provinces. So in Laos, there are the country here, there are 18 provinces, and care projects have been active in 7 provinces, mostly in the rural area, the most remote area. That this area are the uplands and also the south too, that have a hard to reach area and care work in really challenging place. And this is all our active projects that we are currently operate in different area of the country. And for the gender unit, we have number of different tools and approaches, and this is what we are operating. As I mentioned earlier, that care gender is a core, like gender is integrated in all care projects. And what we do, how do we integrate in the different projects that we have? We have projects on climate change, we have project on health, we have project on women economic empowerment. So how do we do? So we have to tailor on each areas of the kind of the project, what kind of like gaps and needs, and then we tailor that based on our existing tools and approaches. And this is the list that we are currently applying to our current projects. And I want to highlight the gender marker, which Alina will talk more about, that we use this as the indicator to measure the gender continuum, the level of gender, that whether or not the project has been either gender sensitive, gender aware, or like gender responsive or gender transformative. So these are all the tools that we are currently working on, like we adjust, adapt, and also apply to different projects. And every time that we do the training, we have to make sure that we understand the need of we understand the project objective and what can gender tools can be applied to the beneficiaries. And what are we doing? What are our Women Economic Empowerment Unit doing? Well, doing Alina placement and also during my term. So just want to let you know that I also joined CARE 6 months ago. So we have done a number of things, especially on the dissemination events that we have doing that we conducted last month or even last week that we did. So it's really fun and challenging, but we learned a lot about conducting the dissemination event, being the panelist, being the presenter, or even being the speaker, because we done the gender training to the reporters, to the green journalists, and we talk about how the reporters can integrate the gender equality lens to their reporting or to their social media content. So it was fun that what are we doing at work, but also what are our we colleagues. So you can see that this is the just give you all about the highlights or maybe seeing like different phases of what are we doing at CARE. We have as you can see a lot of women, because CARE is like a gender organization and we have a lot of females working there, but maybe we are so passionate we are so passionate and dedicated, like women-led organization, because our country office are also female, finance director are also female, and our program director currently is also female. So as you can see, we get inspired and surrounded by talented leaders, and these are our colleagues. And of course, we also enjoy life. You can see that here are the recap of as a volunteer that came here to support the work at CARE, also enjoy life. So yeah, just give the recap of like how we also spend some time outside work and go to the number of like ceremony, number of events, and also the tourist site. So yeah, that's all for me about the overview and recap about the work at CARE, and also the time that our amazing volunteer Alina and sign up here. So just want to share with you about how we also enjoy our life. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Anusan. Great to get an overview of Laos and the work that CARE is doing. And so next up, we'll have Alina talk about her placement and her experience with CARE and working closely with Anusan.
All right, can everyone hear me? Yes? No? Maybe?
Yep, we can hear
Yes,
you.
we can hear you.
Perfect. All right, thank you so much, Megan, for the introduction, and thanks, Anu-san, for giving that overview of CARE's work. So yeah, my name is Alina, and I am one of the volunteers who just finished my placement with CARE. You can go to the next slide, Megan. Perfect. So as Megan said earlier, I'm a veterinarian from Ontario. I graduated in 2023. Shout out to any Opal Otters listening out there. I've always had a strong interest in One Health, and I actually previously volunteered with Vets Without Borders on a telemedicine project with the Ghana Poultry Network during COVID. But I'd always wanted to do like a in-country placement. So after working in large animal general practice in the Guelph area, right after vet school, this was kind of just a perfect opportunity to go on one in Laos. So perfect. You can go to the next slide. So as Anusan mentioned, a lot of my work related to gender was supporting the Women's Economic Empowerment Unit. So there were kind of like four main areas that I focused on gender-wise. So this was updating gender markers, which I'll talk about briefly, especially as they're related to the journalism project called GAMSIL. And then I also was really involved with the 16 Days of Activism campaign against gender-based violence. And finally, also just documenting the human impact of the WHO Food Security Project on women in the target communities. So I'll talk about each of these in turn, starting with the gender markers. So you can go ahead to the next slide. Perfect. So this is one of the gender tools that CARE uses. So as Anusan mentioned, CARE is a gender organization. So every project is supposed to be at least gender sensitive, ideally gender responsive or transformative. And they kind of use this scale where you go from like gender unaware, which is essentially a project that wouldn't take gender norms into consideration, and then all the way to gender transformative, which is one that actively tries to change gender norms. And so we use the gender marker vetting forms is what the tool is called. And you're essentially supposed to fill one out for every project before, during, and after the project. So this was kind of my first task as a volunteer, and I updated a gender marker form for each project that was under CARE, like every active project under CARE. And I did this mostly by using like baseline reports or midterm reports on the project activities. So this was actually a really good way to familiarize myself with CARE's different projects and like get up to date with the activities. Next slide, please. So one of these was the GAMSIL project, which stands for Green Action Through Media, Mass Organization, and Civil Society in Laos, GAMSIL for short. And the aim of this project was to strengthen journalist skills in reporting on green issues. But because it's a CARE project, gender has to be a big part of it as well. So this project was actually just like beginning to be implemented when I joined CARE. So I used their baseline report to kind of like score it on where it fell on the gender scale. And I scored it as gender sensitive. So this means that it's working within gender norms within the cultural context, not necessarily like trying to change them yet, but yeah, working within those norms. And this form has two sides. So the next slide shows kind of like the second page. And it's essentially an explanation of why you scored the project the way you scored it, and main lessons and recommendations that you would give to integrate gender into the project activities. And you can see on the next slide that two of my main recommendations were one, to make sure that the project activities were tailored to ensure equal and meaningful participation, especially by women journalists in every single part of the project. So whether it was getting information, making decisions, or giving feedback. And then also to ensure that of the journalists that were being trained during like study tours or field trips, at least 50% of them were women. And so this is where Anusan and I came in. So for the gender equality trainings, we gave 3 of them in 3 different provinces in Laos, where the project had activities. So one was in Luang Prabang, which is kind of like the top circle you see there on the map. The other place was in Vientiane, which is the capital, which is where I was based out of. And then the last one was in Champasak, which is actually southern Laos. So it was really fun to be able to like travel to all these places, see the different parts of Laos, and then also be able to give these trainings at the same time. Okay, and next slide, please. So our trainings encompassed a bunch of topics related to gender. We presented on CARE's gender equality framework, gave an overview of sex versus gender, and used tools such as this genderbread person to explore concepts of gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, and biological sex, which was just a really good, like, kind of raising awareness, especially within this cultural context where sometimes those topics are not talked about as much. And you can see images on the next slide. Yes, perfect. We also explored concepts of privilege using an activity called the Wheel of Power, where participants, this is the lower image on here, participants have to map themselves in different categories based on like where they fall within that category. And the closer they are to the middle, the more privilege they hold in society. And so it was just and then they recreated this activity, which is what is shown in the picture. So it's just a really neat way to visualize privilege and those kinds of concepts. And then the other 2 pictures are us actively giving the trainings. And a really cool thing was that in every single group of journalists that we were training, at least 50% of participants were women, if not more. So it was really great to see, those recommendations that I gave at the beginning being followed. And in the next slide, you can see we also explored concepts of equality versus equity, the gender gap in journalism, so especially as this applies to Laos and to Southeast Asia in general. And then we also talked a lot about gender-based violence, which as a volunteer, this was actually one of my greatest challenges in delivering these trainings. In the first training that we planned, I had kind of come up with an activity to hand the participants case studies on people who had experienced gender-based violence, and then get them to come up with a plan on how they would report on this kind of situation. But I think it was a really good opportunity for me to really evaluate this in the cultural context of Laos, where gender-based violence is kind of something that's talked about behind closed doors. If it happens within a family, it's just kind of like stay within the family. It's a little bit taboo still. And so this activity was tricky for the journalists because realistically, they wouldn't be reporting on gender-based violence cases. So then on the next slide, you can see that we were able to adapt our training. And I think this was one of the really neat things of doing several trainings in a row. We were able to adapting to focus more on creating advocacy campaigns to raise awareness on gender-based violence within the country. So we presented the journalists with examples of CARE USA's global campaign for 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And then their task was to create their own social media campaign posts. And these are seen on the next slide. And yeah, so this was the activity. This went over a lot better. Yeah, the journalists got really creative in what they were presenting, the kind of captions they were coming up with. These are all Facebook posts that they created. Facebook is kind of like the main social media platform in Laos. And we were actually able to relate this directly to our own 16 Days of Activism campaign that's actually currently still running. It's from November 25th to December 10th. And actually, many of the journalists we later found out, are also planning on running their own advocacy efforts in their own media forms that they usually work with. So whether it's social media, print, or radio, they're running their own campaigns as well, which was really, really neat. And so then to talk a little bit more about the 16 Days of Activism. So this was a big part of what I was doing the last few weeks, actually. It was working with Anusan and with all of CARE's other departments, actually, to come up with this campaign. A big part of it was also involving our provincial teams to make sure that they're running their own events. Our provincial teams are in all of those other parts of the country that Anusan highlighted, so northern and southern Laos. And so we designed a social media campaign. A big part of it was also designing visibility items, so t-shirts, totes, like canvas totes, and notebooks, and then procuring these visibility items, which again, this was a big lesson for me as a volunteer to learn that procurement takes time. And so we were actually kind of stressed that we weren't going to get these visibility items on time for the opening ceremony on November 25th. But thankfully, you'll see on the next slide that they came in the morning of, thank goodness. So yeah, that's the picture in the middle, just a bunch of our items coming in. And yes, this slide just kind of shows the Day to End Violence Against Women. That was the opening ceremonies for this, for the beginning of this campaign. And so we had a booth set up at this historical monument in Vientiane, and had a lot of engaging participation with the public, with a hand painting activity and Q&A, and a lot of freebies to hand out that had come in. So that was really great. And the campaign is ongoing. So if you actually look up Care Laos on Facebook, you'll be able to see some of the posts that the communications team has been doing. And finally, to talk about just a quick impact story. So I mentioned the Kua Food Security Project at the beginning. So this project's aim was to improve participants' livelihoods through implementing water systems and latrines in target villages, and also supporting income-generating activities such as home gardens, small livestock farming, cattle fattening training, and establishing volunteer village veterinarians within the target communities. I actually came in kind of at the very, very end of this project to document the impact that it had on the community. So Anuson and I interviewed the water committee and a cattle farmer, and I wrote 2 impact stories based on this, one on the gravity-fed water system, the other one on the cattle raising and vet services. And I'm actually just going to focus on the water system. So on the next slide, you'll see this was in my village, which was one of the villages that was targeted. And through interviews with the water committee, we were able to kind of learn about how before the water system was established, women had the task of fetching water, and a lot of their daily time was allotted to this. Sometimes they had to travel long distances, especially during dry season. Some of the water sources were unreliable. And so this was a big burden on women. And once after having this system installed, every household now has water, and women can dedicate their time to more income generating activities such as home gardens and small livestock raising. And on top of that, I found the meeting Ms. Sook really inspiring. So she's actually the accountant for the water committee. And you can see her image in this next slide. So here she is. So she's part of the water committee. And being the accountant, she actually learned many financial literacy skills through the project. And she was showing us how every month she's in charge of reading the water meters at every household, calculating how much each household owes, and then collecting the money. And then a small percentage of this money pays the water committee for their work that they're doing. So it's actually like earning them a little bit of extra income this way as well. And the rest of it goes into a community fund to use for emergencies. So it was really inspiring to see just how empowered she was with the skills that she learned through the project. And then on top of that, just to see the water committee, which is on the top left there, really take ownership of this water system and say, hey, now that we have clean water to every single household, clean, reliable water, we are going to take ownership for like maintaining this and making sure that repairs are done and things like that. So it was a really great way to see a community really come together to make something work. And so before I finish, I was just going to mention, so all of this that I've been presenting on kind of does beg the question, like, what is a vet doing working in gender equality? And as Megan mentioned earlier, like I've always had an interest in gender work and specifically how it relates to One Health. So just in this last slide, with CARE, I was able to use many of the soft skills that we learn as vets and apply them to a different context. So whether it was, running biosecurity training for the village vets and the farmers, which is, closer to my field of study, and you can see that in the bottom right picture, or giving a presentation on One Health to government partners, or assisting for like distributing relief items for people who were affected by flooding, or talking about, doing all the gender work that I just talked about. This placement really captured One Health in action because at the end of the day, all of CARE's projects are at the forefront of One Health. They try to solve these really complex problems in these communities. And they have to keep, not just like cultural context and traditions in view, but the gender norms within that community and work with them. So it was really special to be able to apply my skills and my education to this topic that I've always had an interest in. And it also helped me grow a lot in that aspect as well. So yeah, I'm really grateful for Vets Without Borders for placing me in Laos and to have worked with such a wonderful team at CARE. They're truly, truly special. And yeah, that's it. My last slide is just a picture of some Lao cattle living their best lives. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much, Alina. Yeah, great to hear about your volunteer placement and about One Health in action, of course. Always wonderful to hear those impact stories come to life. So last but not least, we have our final panelist, Zainab, who's going to talk about her 4-month placement with CARE in Laos.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning to friends in Canada. I know that there are a lot of friends from different parts of the world. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today as we celebrate International Volunteers Day. My name is Aina, and I had the privilege of working as volunteer with multiple international organizations, including these 2 great organizations, BWB and CARE International. Having such great experience, I have learned that volunteering is not just about giving, it's about growing, learning, and building connections that have a lasting impact. So today I would like to share my experience as a climate change and gender advisor in Laos, where I work to support CARE International in climate resilience and gender empowerment. I would like to also talk about challenges, the successes that I encountered during my assignments in Lao PDR. And referring to Megan, the previous slide, I want to just refer to the photo that I included on the photo that I included here. That before diving into the presentation, I want to take a moment to reflect on volunteering means to us and means to me. And just to put in a short sentence that volunteering is about stepping out of our comfort zones and into the communities where we can make a difference. And no matter how small or big our contributions might seem. And with that, I want to get us started. And I want to start with sharing a little bit about my background and the journey that as a volunteer, how my journey as a volunteer has shaped my perspective. Next slide, please. And here I included a little bit of my background, that I have a bachelor's degree in food engineering and a master's degree from Germany in EnviroFood. Stands for Environmental Protection and Agricultural Food Production. And my research centered around the economic impact of climate change on agriculture using quantitative methods. And my prior to this role, I have I have volunteered with two other organizations, one Australian NGO and also one American NGO, where I worked on supporting education, healthcare, food aid distributions, and also women empowerment. And next slide, please. And this slide, I want to discuss how this expertise has tied into my volunteer role and contributions. The Women's Resilience to Climate Action Unit, WRCA unit, and in Care International actually served as my base of operations. And in my role, I provided strategic guidance and supported the implementation of key WRCA projects to ensure they align with the organizational goals and priorities. I was responsible for designing and delivering capacity building training sessions, so focus on critical topics such as climate and smart agriculture. Additionally, I collaborated with MIL department. I highlighted, I put it in the red color, like the MIL stands for Monitoring, Evaluation, Accountability, and Learning. And I contributed to reviewing the key projects reports, ranging from baseline assessments to final evaluations. And also beyond these responsibilities, I actively participated in the development of project proposals and contributed to building a strategic partnership to enhance the impact and sustainability of WRCA initiatives. Next slide, please. And WRCA unit was established to tackle the pressing challenges posed by climate change in Laos. Its mission has been to build resilience among ethnic and vulnerable rural women while reducing disaster risk through carefully designed and targeted initiatives. Because Laos, actually has been experiencing rising temperature, intense rainfall, prolonged droughts, and frequent typhoons, as highlighted in the World Bank update published in 2021. Next slide. And I included this photo. On the left side, you can see the Nagi typhoon, which hit the region, starting from Vietnam to the north of Laos, China, and also some parts of Myanmar. And it happened actually during December, where I was supposed to head to the north of Laos into Langomtha to have my training in climate smart agriculture, and the whole province, Langomtha province, was flooded. And you can see the photo of Langomtha on the right side. And how the flood impacted the whole region. That's why I had to postpone my training to 1 week before my departure to Canada. Next slide, please. I also included this photo to highlight another pressing environmental concerns in Laos, which is deforestation, and also the widespread practice of slash and burn agriculture. This practices not only contribute to the biodiversity loss, but also soil degradation, which exacerbate the climate change impacts by releasing significant amount of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Addressing these issues is critical for promoting sustainable land management and also preserving the natural ecosystems in the region. Just to give you a bit of a hint about environmental issues in Laos. Next slide, please. I would like to introduce our team in WRCA department. We were a small team. I worked as a senior advisor, and I had the privilege of working closely with Apon, the senior officer at WRCA. Apon was an exceptional and committed colleague, and I truly consider myself fortunate to have had the opportunity to collaborate with her. And I would also like to highlight that all of my colleagues at CARE were incredibly supportive, friendly, and pleasure to work with, which made my experience even more rewarding, including Anu-san, who gave the presentation a bit earlier. Next slide, please. And this slide, I try to highlight the key ongoing projects under WRCA unit. Currently, there are 5 active projects and 2 more are in the pipeline awaiting MOU finalization. These projects are diverse in scope, but share a common goal of building resilience among climate change impacts. against climate change impacts. I briefly go over the projects and their objectives, starting with the WCR project, which I believe has been the most impactful in empowering women to address climate changes in their communities. Moving on to other projects, KFSP project is also focused on food security, addressing agricultural challenges, and promoting sustainable farming practices. VACT, which I'm gonna discuss in details later in the next slides, also emphasizes women-led climate resilience initiatives. It's particularly strong in encouraging female leadership in community level climate actions, and also GAMSIL that my colleague and my friend Alina discussed it a little bit earlier. And also at the end, we had the ACES 3 and ACES 4. Actually, they were like ACES 1, 2, 3, 4, which is kind of like the same project that is being implemented in different provinces. And ACES 3 was implemented in the south of Laos, and ACES 4, actually the MOU was signed yesterday, if I'm not wrong. So ACES 4 is going to be implemented soon, probably next year in the north of Laos, this time in Phongsali province. And next slide, please. And here, this map was already shared with by my colleague Anderson, but I just wanted to show you like the majority of the climate. The projects under WRCA unit are from the north of Laos, especially in Phongsali province, because it's due to the fact that Phongsali has a mountainous terrain and is home to some of the poorest and most vulnerable ethnic minorities in the country. So addressing their unique challenges has been a priority for CARE in Laos, and that's why majority of the projects are concentrated in Phongsali in the north. As you can see on the top, started from ACES to 1000 Days project, WCR, KFSP, and SWACR. Next slide, please. And here, as I briefly mentioned, WCR project, that it's a flagship initiative that aims to empower ethnic minority women to build resilience to climate change. This project uses tools like GCVCA, which is short for Gender Sensitive Climate Vulnerability and Capacity Analysis, and also a variety of other tools like Community Adaptation Action Plan, Village Saving and Loan Associations, community accountability mechanisms to help women increase their income through innovative actions. And also at the same time, WCR aims to help women to solve their family challenges, like to reduce also the gender-based violence with two tools, CDT and also GBV. And in the next slide, I'm going to give you an example of how WACR has used these tools to empower women. And actually, these three stories are one of my significant contributions to the WACR project, that I did this field visits to assess activities on the ground, the activities implemented on the ground via WACR project. And during my visits, I collected the data, I conducted interviews with various stakeholders and project beneficiaries, and authored impact stories highlighting the outcome of the project. And I have one story on the right side from the woman, one of the project beneficiary who participated the broomstick production activity. And the very left story, like the last one on the left side, is Tone's story, who participated in the honey production activity. And in the middle, I wrote the story about the head of Lao Women Union, a civil society organization that was a partner to CARE and also WCR project to help empower women in different villages and districts in Phongsali province. And these stories provide a glimpse into the transformative impact of WCR on the lives of individuals and communities. And in the next slide, this story is actually one of my favorite stories because it highlights all the aspects of like the tools and activities conducted in WSER and how each helped these women to adapt to the impact of climate change. And just to give you a summary of the story, like the Tony's story highlights the journey of a 30-year-old woman from Khmu ethnic minority in Phongsaly province, Laos, who overcame the significant challenges posed by climate change. Living in a remote mountainous area with her family, Tone relied on subsistence farming, which was heavily impacted by unpredictable weather events like flood and landslides. Through her involvement in the WCR project, she gained access to tools, training, resources that help her adopt climate resilience agricultural practices, which in this case was honey production. And this not only improved her family's livelihood, but also empowered her to break the cycle of poverty and take on more active role in her community. So this woman was a very shy woman in the beginning, and through this, and after she started attending the community meeting, which was dominated by men in the beginning, she after like 2 years after the WECR project, she ended up becoming the leader of Lao Women Union in her community, and she had a role and a say in all of the decisions that were made in that community gathering, community meeting, regularly occurring every month in her village. And yeah, this is the story of a woman, how she transformed throughout the WCR project. And next slide, I also included this resilience marker because my colleague Alina also mentioned about gender marker that is often used in care. I mean, it has been developed by Care International to assess the gender integration into the projects. And this tool also is a self-assessment tool that helps project teams evaluate and improve the integration of resilience into the project. And it supports CARE's broader mission to address poverty and social injustice by focusing on how risk and vulnerabilities to shock and stresses are managed. And projects are scored from 0 to 4. You can see down the left side that 0 means no resilience integration and 4 means excellent integration. And this form that I included like on the right side pertains to WCR project, which achieved an excellent score of 4 in the resilience marker assessment. And this reflects that the project's outstanding integration of resilience principles and significant alignment with CARE approach to addressing risk and vulnerability. And to mention some of the trainings that I conducted in Laos, the first one was climate change awareness and governance that I did for 2 projects. One project was WCR. We had a dissemination workshop in Vientiane, and also I conducted a full day training for CARE's VTE stands for Vientiane, which means the headquarter. And where also some provincial managers and staff joined us in Vientiane. And I covered the topics of like the basics of climate change and how the climate change is impacting Laos, and also the key frameworks of UNFCCC, IPCC, and also the nationally determined contributions reports, and also a national adaptation plan. And the next training that I conducted, next slide, please, Megan. And also I had 2 trainings in climate smart agriculture because there was a high demand, high request by the provincial team for that. I conducted one for WCR in the dissemination workshop that they had in Vientiane. And also I conducted the 3-day workshop training for climate smart agriculture for VACT project in Longamtha. This is a training that I said that it was postponed to almost 1 week before my departure to Canada because of the flood. And where I talked about, I discussed climate change basics, the impact of climate change on agriculture, and also the number of practices. The climate smart agriculture, the short acronym uses CSA, the CSA practices recommended by FAO, UN FAO, and how we can integrate gender into the design and implementation of CSA. And in the next slide, you can see some of the maybe 2 slides later. Yes, here I included some photos of this training that I did like almost 2 weeks ago in Langomsa. And we can get back to the previous slide. I also included one survey, also again as a part of the FAO manual for CSA training, where I wish not only me, but also CARE had done this sort of survey way more to really have some sort of assessment at the end, like what are the perception of men and women in Laos about this gendered access to resources and also the impact of climate change. Like I did a survey only for the participants in my training, which were like only about 20 people. And even in these 20 people, like my findings were like more than 55% of female participants believe that men have greater access to all the resources from land to water to technology and also to decision-making opportunities, while men believe that over 80% of men believe that these resources are equally distributed. And then when it comes to perception of impact of climate change on which gender, women believe that they were more impacted than men. But then on the opposite, more than half of men believe that they were impacted more. And next slide. Yes, and this is another training that I conducted in Luang Prabang, where I joined my colleagues Alina and also Anusan for a half-day training about climate change and also how to report on environmental issues in Laos. And this was a very short training, and it was really interesting because it was not planned in my schedule, and reporting on environmental issues was a really interesting topic, an important topic actually in Laos to discuss because of the tourism that is growing in Laos, and it's also causing more environmental issues, like especially the waste, causing a waste disaster in Laos at the moment. It was really important for the journalists to identify these issues and then report on them. Next slide, please. And these are just some photos that I included from the other activities that I did in Laos. We are CARE, that I attended multiple conferences in climate change. I attended MOU signature, and I helped build partnerships, private partnerships with CARE International. And also we are running out of time, so I try to be a little bit fast. So I found CARE's work to have a very lasting impact. And I witnessed that how CARE organizations and their staff and their teams are empowering women through these different projects all over the Laos, and how they are building capacity of rural women by providing them multiple different skills, taking them on different tours, and helping them and empowering them to attend more community meetings and raise their voice, and also raise their awareness about the GBV, gender-based violences, the types, and how to tackle them. And also the fact that all of the CARE's projects are based on community-based approaches. So they always engage communities to identify the solutions that they want to be implemented in their communities. Next slide, please. And this is a personal impression of the barriers that I identify for myself. Like if I had, if without these barriers, I could have worked way more effectively. And one was like, if I had access to more quality data from the fields, if I had more field visits in the beginning, and also the language barrier and the lack of access to full-time or at least better translators or translation services that could have really facilitated my work as a volunteer to have a better impact. And also if I had gone and if I had stayed in Laos, probably I could have seen the results of my work there. Next slide, please. And these are my takeaways that I witnessed. I learned about the importance of embedding gender into climate resilience strategies to ensure the sustainability of the project, and also the importance of the power of community-driven solutions to also make the projects and also all the interventions to be sustainable in the communities. These have been my takeaways, and I thank you so much for joining this webinar and let me know if you have any questions. Sorry, I had to just rush through some slides because we are running out of time, but thank you again.
Thank you so much, Zainab. It was great to hear how your background in gender and climate and agriculture all came together for this volunteer placement. We are close to the end, but we do have time for a few questions, and I see there are actually quite a number in the Q&A, so I will just go ahead and start answering some, or not answering them, asking them. So Anu-san, this first question is for you. What are some of the barriers to engaging women participants that are different from more general outreach?
Yes, luckily I have some time to prepare and think about this question. Actually, so as I mentioned earlier, that Laos is like a really multicultural country because we have over 50 ethnic minorities, and one of the key barrier is the language. That the language barrier for because CARE works with ethnic minority women, so how we can engage women to participate in all care activities. The language barrier when we speak Lao, and they have the women beneficiary barely understand the national language. So this also inherent from the social norms that we have male dominated society, like the culture that we prioritize male rather than women because women are usually seen as the carekeepers or the caretakers. So they usually stay at home, not really participate in like community activities, not making, not are the key decision makers. So this is like the barrier because they are less empowered. So how we do it, how we address this. So we work with the government of Laos. So at the government of Laos, we have the department called Lao Women Union. So in all from the central to district level or even village level, that the women leader group will work with the women group to communicate clearly what do we want, and also most often time we try to make sure that we have the translator or like the people who can communicate both Lao and ethnic language so that we can engage women in all of our project activities, because we oftentimes we mention that in all project activities we need women to participate at least 50%. So every time we conduct, even the meeting, we have to clearly state that we need women participants. So the organizer or like the representative have to bring the women to participate, regardless that they are not active in the discussion. But we want to open the room and empower them and encourage them to participate more. Thank you.
Thanks, Anu-san. That's great. Someone had a question about the water supply project. What is the population in my village, and how long did it take to construct the water supply system? And who designed it, if you know?
So I can talk a little bit about that. There were 39 households in my village. So not entirely sure of like exactly the population, but if you're thinking of like 4 to 5 people per household, like somewhere between 150 to 250 people. And I think more than the construction, it's more like all the planning and like, you know, all the technical expertise that has to go into constructing the water system that takes time. So like around 2 to 3 years, probably from like first conception to when it was actually functional. I'm not entirely sure who exactly designed it. I do know that it's one that's very widely used within the country, like not just with CARES projects, but with a lot of other projects. So yeah, I can't really answer to like who exactly designed it, but yeah, I think it has been widely tested and used.
Awesome. Thanks, Alina. So I will take one more question because we are kind of at the end of our time. But since it is International Volunteer Day, I'll pose the questions that came up a couple times to Alina and Zainab. What would you recommend for future volunteers or people who are thinking about volunteering internationally, would you recommend it? And any tips and tricks for people who are thinking of volunteering, anything you think would be helpful to future volunteers?
Yeah, Alina, you want to go first? Yeah, please.
Okay, sure, I can go first. I think for me, probably I do very much recommend it. I have absolutely loved my time in Laos. I'm actually hoping to come back because it's just been so amazing. And I think a big part of it is just to kind of, if you're thinking of doing a placement such as this, like prepare for the unexpected, I guess. Not everything is going to go to plan, and definitely like being a very adaptable person is very important. Not just in like your own experience, but a lot of times we'd have like a plan for like, oh, we're going to go do this training at this time, and this is how we're going to get there. And then all of a sudden there's like a typhoon and everything floods, and now you can't do it. So just like things like that, or like, oh, like there's like a landslide on the road, so it's going to take 5 hours to get to the town instead of like two, like just like things like that. Like you just have to be very adaptable and kind of resilient in terms of like you're not always going to be staying in like the poshest places, or like you're going to be eating like different kinds of food. But it is truly just so it's really eye-opening, and it's amazing to meet all these people working within the development sector. I hadn't really worked within like an organization like CARE before, and it's really like inspiring to see, as Anderson was saying, to work with all these like like-minded individuals, like-minded like young women who are just like so empowered to like make a change in the world and stuff. So yeah, that's probably how I would answer that question, but I'm sure Zainab can add her thoughts.
Okay, for me, because I had also this other volunteers experiences from past, and I always limit myself to only one country. And then this summer I decided to just try new like country, because it's just a nature of volunteering that you have to go for every community that need your help, like no matter where that community is, which part of the world. And despite I had never been to Southeast Asia, there was one question for me that why I chose Laos. It was that the whole Southeast Asia was quite a new region to me. I had no idea how life even looks like there. And since I was actually just exploring the volunteer opportunities because I loved volunteering, and that's not just about, as I said, about giving, it's about learning, growing even as a person, while also helping community with even the list of your skills and knowledge. And then when I chose Laos and I went there, and I cannot even describe how amazing this journey was, like how much I learned, all the new friends that I made there. And as Alina said, you just need to be more flexible and adaptable, and just be open to all the new things, risk, or any incidents that may happen, but always have to keep this positive mindset and just be open to the challenges and be ready for them. And that's all.
Awesome. Thank you both. We didn't have a chance to get to all the questions, so I apologize for that, but I know people have places to be, and it is quite late in the evening in Laos. So I just want to say thank you everyone for joining us today. And thank you to our panelists. It was wonderful to hear about the impactful work that CARE is doing in these communities throughout Laos. And of course, on International Volunteer Day, so great to hear about two very successful volunteer placements and the contributions of volunteers in international development. So thank you, everyone. The recording will be available and we can share it. But have a wonderful day. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you. Happy International Day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.